The bit screams. Doors say closed. I'm Jessica Cole, an ER nurse, and this is the morning I watched a son change the locks on 40 years of love. The morning air tastes like betrayal and wet concrete. The man with the Walmart bag is Bobby Henderson, 74, shoulders curved like parentheses around a lifetime of carrying other people's weight. The one leaning on the brick is his son, Marcus, 40 years old, arms crossed like he's guarding something that was never his to guard. I'd just finished a night shift. The sky over the row houses had the colour of cold dishwater. Across the street, a locksmith buried a drill into Bobby's deadbolt, while Marcus leaned on the brick like the wall belonged to him. Bobby stood with a Walmart bag in one hand and a bunch of keys in the other, keys that no longer fit anything that mattered. "Contract's on the door," Marcus said, voice flat as roadkill. "You don't live here anymore." The locksmith kept his eyes on the brass. The drill chewed and shook. A wet envelope slid out of the Walmart bag and kissed the porch. Lab logo, edges soft from rain, the kind of envelope that promises clarity and delivers ice. I stepped off the curb. "Sir," I said to the locksmith, "are you authorising a lock change on a primary residence with an elder present?" My voice landed like a clipboard. Marcus smiled without his eyes. "Elder?" he said. "He's not my responsibility." He jerked his chin at Bobby. "He's not my father. Papers say so." My phone was already in my hand. I hit 911. "Possible illegal lockout," I said. "Elder at risk." The drill stopped mid-whine. The locksmith looked at Marcus, at me, at the envelope dripping on the stoop. Bobby didn't move. He rubbed his thumb along the worn brass of a key that had opened a kitchen since cable boxes had knobs. "Come with me," I said. "Please." We crossed the street while the city yawned awake. Trash trucks grumbling, a bus sighing at a corner where nobody waited. Inside my kitchen, I set a mug in front of him and missed the saucer. Coffee pebbled the counter. He held the cup with both hands like heat was the only thing the morning had left. His phone blinked a voicemail. He pushed it toward me, a quiet surrender. "Play it," he said. A bright title office voice chirped into the room. "Just confirming we're on for your closing next Friday. That's 8 days. If you have any questions about the deed transfer, give us a call." "Oh, 8 days isn't long. For a lifetime, it's a knife." Bobby set the Walmart bag on the table. The envelope lay on top like a dare. He nodded once. I slid a finger under the flap and pulled the paper free. I read the numbers twice to make sure a decimal hadn't betrayed us. Then I read the only line that mattered. "Probability of paternity," I said. 0%. The coffee trembled. Bobby's hands shook, not from age, from the earthquake of 40 years crumbling in 30 seconds. He kept the cup from spilling with the same reflex that had caught a toddler's falling milk once, long ago, before anyone checked anything but a fever. "I kept telling myself it was early," he said, staring at numbers that don't lie but don't tell the whole truth either. "Linda said he came fast. 7 months, she said. Premature, but healthy." He laughed, a sound like glass breaking in the slow motion. Then I kept telling myself, for 40 years. Plan, APS, lawyer, paper trail, file, before 4:30. "Do you have anything you signed with Marcus after Linda passed?" I asked. "Something simple," he said. "For bills." He said taxes. He said the envelope name should match the account name. I didn't want trouble. Trouble doesn't need an invitation. It lives at the edge of a signature. "Where did Linda keep records?" I asked. "Top of the pantry," he said, "behind the flour." I climbed a chair and pulled down a shoebox softened by years. Inside, rubber bands, a county fair Polaroid, a church program with a greasy thumbprint, a bent safety pin, and a folded thermal sheet with a crescent smudge. I held it to the light. An ultrasound bloomed, grain and ghost. No date in the header. On the back of a grocery list where carrots were crossed out and sugar got 2 circles, a note in neat, worried handwriting. I was scared you'd leave before you ever met us. I'm sorry for the harm my silence did. My hand went numb. The paper slid and caught on the box edge. Bobby didn't reach for it. He stared at the picture like a man finally reading his past without closing one eye. She lied, he said, and I loved them anyway. I took his phone and scrolled the inbox. Draft MLS attachments, emails from an agent named Cartwright, 2 months before the DNA test, a text from Marcus, moving him to assisted living next month. Another, let's keep this simple. We need an attorney, I said, and adult protective services, and photos of you outside, nighttime temps, a copy of that text, the deed you signed, everything. He nodded once. We left the envelope on my table and he slid the ultrasound into his wallet like a receipt you don't want to lose. The legal clinic smelled like paper and determination. Mr. Rios's tie never sits straight and he likes it that way. He shook Bobby's hand like he was taking weight from it. I gave him the morning in triage order, lock change, eviction words, wet envelope, voicemail, shoebox, note, draft listing, assisted living text. Consent isn't real when fear holds the pen, he said. What we need is a paper trail that shows who held the pen and when. Targets, gift deed or quitclaim signed after the funeral, draft MLS. Assisted living text with timestamps, photos of Bobby sleeping outside, nighttime temps to show exposure, APS case number once they open it. And time, he said. Title is moving. To stop it, we file a air lice pendens and a petition to void transfer for undue influence and constructive eviction. Clerk's window closes at 4:30 today. Ms. Vega from APS met us in the lobby 10 minutes later with a clipboard and a way of listening that asks for truth without announcing judgment. Case ID in blue ink. A copy for Bobby's pocket. If anyone suggests you don't exist in your own home, she said, show them this. Officer Dempsey arrived a minute after. No self-help lock changes, he said. He took a statement. He looked at my photo of Bobby under the awning last week and the weather app reading 45 with wind. He looked at Bobby's hands. He didn't say sympathy. He wrote law. Rios printed forms until the copier sighed. Sign here, he said, and here, initial there. He slid the last page forward and held a pen steady enough to stop a tremor. Paper is easy to sign when trust is heavy. The court knows the weight. We ran the rain to the courthouse. The lot was full. I paid a meter like I owed the city a favour I could never repay. Inside, the air tasted like cold and staples. The courthouse clock reads 4:23 p.m., 7 minutes. 7 minutes between justice and theft. A sign at the window read, back in 5, 4:21. We watched the second hand swing like it owed us something. 4:24 p.m., 6 minutes. My hands are shaking as I feed quarters into the parking meter. 4:25 p.m., 5 minutes to save a lifetime. The clerk returned with coffee and the casual pace of someone who doesn't know she's holding a man's future in her stamp. Rios put our file on the counter and didn't take his hand off it. Lee's pendens, he said. Petition to void transfer. He added the APS case copy, the photos, the text printout, the deed. The clerk flipped page by page. She paused at the ultrasound and the note. She slid them back as if touching a family's heartbeat. 4:29 p.m., 1 minute. Bobby stops breathing. I stop breathing. She raised the stamp. 4:30 p.m., filed. The sound echoes like a church bell announcing salvation. Now they can't pretend they didn't know. We stepped into rain that had decided to be honest. My phone buzzed. Cartwright Realty. We received an affidavit from Mr. Henderson's son stating consent and an assisted living move. Unless title is clouded, we will proceed with closing. I forwarded the stamped PDFs and CC'd Rios. His reply subject line didn't blink. Title: Cloud in effect. Lis pendens attached. APS case active. Broker counsel, Patel wrote back, "We will review and revert." Marcus showed up at Harbour Title the next morning with a folder and the posture of someone who thinks math should take his side. Ashley walked half a step behind, eyes busy doing calculations no one had taught her. Bobby and I sat where we could be seen. Visibility is its own affidavit. Marcus walks into Harbour Title wearing confidence like an expensive suit. Cartwright's smile had too much glue. The buyer, a teacher who liked hydrangeas and South Light, ran a hand along the edge of a manila folder, the way you pet a nervous dog. "Before we get settled," the speakerphone crackled, "we need to address a title issue," Patel said. "It's nothing," Marcus said, "just family noise." He slid an affidavit across the table. "Consent." Then Rios walks in carrying our folder like it weighs more than paper should. Behind him, Ms. Vega from Adult Protective Services, clipboard in hand, justice in her eyes. Behind her, Officer Dempsey, no handcuffs, no drama, just the quiet authority of law that doesn't need to shout. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Rios set our folder down like a counterweight. "Consent isn't a magic word," he said. "Consent isn't real when fear holds the pen." He opens our folder like he's revealing evidence in a murder trial. "Here," he says, sliding the first document across the polished table, "is the lis pendens filed yesterday at 4:30 p.m. Here," another document slides, "are photographs of Mr. Henderson sleeping outside in 40-degree weather while his son changed the locks." The buyer gasps. Her hand flies to her mouth. "Here," Rios continues, relentless as rain, "is the text message where Marcus tells the realtor his father is moving to assisted living, sent 2 months before the DNA test that supposedly motivated this transfer." Ashley's face goes white as fresh paint. "Here," the final document slides home, "is the deed transfer signed 3 days after Linda Henderson's funeral, when Bobby was grieving, vulnerable, and trusting the son he'd raised for 40 years. "I helped," Marcus said. "I was the last one up when she puked through chemo. I paid the winter bills when the furnace coughed. Don't pretend you know what it took. You're not taking this house from me." "The court will decide what stands and what falls," Rios said. "Today, we decide whether you can sell something you may not legally own." Ms. Vega from APS stepped into the doorway with a quiet gravity that made the room straighten. "For the record," she said, "APS case ID 48-117C is open and active." Officer Dempsey stood behind her, presence without theatre. Ashley leaned forward. "Can I see the message?" she asked. Rios slid a printout across. She read moving him to assisted living, read the date, did the math. "Call it off," she said to Marcus. He didn't. Patel's voice returned, slower now. "Given the lis pendens, the APS inquiry, and the potential for undue influence," she said, clause by clause, "Harbour Title will pause this closing pending counsel." The buyer closed their folder. No speech, just a small nod to weather and the wisdom of roofs. Cartwright exhaled the way you do when you've watched deals die and learned not to argue with death. Marcus stood so fast his chair skidded and left a question on the tile. "You can't do this to me," he said, voice climbing toward panic. Bobby raised his head. His voice didn't climb or crawl. "I didn't do this to you, son," he said. "Your choices did." Silence sat down at the table where a signature was supposed to go. The silence that follows has weight. It presses against the windows. It makes the air thick. It forces everyone to hear their own heartbeat. The court issued a temporary order 2 weeks later. Transfer suspended pending hearing. Deed walking backward through the same office that had stamped it forward. A bank envelope arrived at Marcus's place with late fees stacked like bad stairs. HELOC, interest, penalties. When you pull cash out of a house, you don't really have the math stops liking you. Riverton Engines put him on suspension after APS requested basic verification of caregiver and financial involvement. Policy, not scandal. A note added to a note. A door quietly marked, "Wait outside." Neighbours didn't sabotage showings because there were no showings to sabotage. They wrote affidavits instead. The woman next door logged the night wind cut through the alley while Bobby slept under the awning with a grocery bag over his shoes. The guy 3 doors down produced a text from Marcus telling him to set a couch on the curb because we're minimising for assisted living. Kids who toss a football in the street said, "He was out there 3 nights, maybe 4. Dates, times, temperatures, no adjectives. Rios negotiated like a person who has played this endgame before. Settlement returned the house to Bobby's name. A no-contact order drew a circle and invited Marcus to stay out of it. The court used words the way a carpenter uses a level. The line didn't care about feelings. It cared about true. On Saturdays, Bobby taught a fix-it workshop in the senior centre basement. He brought his own toolbox, but most of what he used came from memory. A kid named Elijah learned what a carburetor does by taking it apart without fear and putting it back together with respect. "It's not going to hurt you," Bobby says, gentle as teaching a child to pet a dog. "Machines want to work. Sometimes they just need someone who understands their language." The engine coughed, then caught. The whole room smiled with its ears. "Bring it back if it acts up," Bobby tells them. "I'll be here. He will be. Because this is what fathers do. They stay, they fix things, they teach the next generation that broken doesn't mean worthless." Hydrangeas went back in the ground by the porch, big blue drums under a warm sky. Margaret brought cuttings and a story about a potluck where 3 salads arrived and nobody complained. Bobby laughed at the right places. He carried the watering can like nothing was heavy anymore. At dusk we put a new bulb in the porch light. The fixture felt like a scar. He turned the ceramic collar with careful fingers and tightened until the threads seated. The switch clicked. The filament glowed, then steadied, then held. We watched it as if breath might break it. "A porch light comes on," I said. "It holds. 40 years should count for something," he said. "It did," I said. "It does." 6 months later, Marcus rented a room by the week at the city's edge where buses turn around. He folded coupons and opened a late notice. He checked his phone. No missed calls. This isn't karma, not the way people post it in comments with crying, laughing emojis and easy righteousness. This is consequence, mathematics with receipts. Actions plus time equals results. Marcus chose to lie to realtors. Consequence, no agent in town will work with him. Marcus chose to exploit a grieving father. Consequence, neighbours remember, co-workers whisper. Reputation follows you in a small city. Marcus chose to prioritise money over love. Consequence, Ashley left. Friends disappeared. He sits alone in a studio apartment where the porch light is a bare bulb that flickers. On a Saturday evening, thick with summer, Margaret's daughter got married under string lights behind a house that used to hold a trampoline. Bobby stood with a boutonniere that matched the hydrangeas. He reached for the bride's arm. She didn't hesitate. They moved together down a path someone had swept twice. After the vows, I stepped to the driveway. Marcus waited by the maple's shadow. "Does he ask about me?" he said. The question set itself on the counter between us like a coin waiting for change. I weighed options like meds, truth versus use, hurt versus harm. "I hope you get help, Marcus," I said, "for both your sakes." He looked toward the street where a porch light was about to bloom. He didn't nod. He didn't argue. He walked away at a speed that made sense for someone without a door to hurry to. That night, Bobby stood at his porch with a hand on the frame his shoulder had worn smooth. He slipped a key into the lock out of habit more than need. The motion comforted him even when it didn't matter. He went inside and reached for the switch. The light came on. No flicker, no buzz, just held. DNA talks about blood. Home talks about light. Justice shows up on paper, a signature, a stamp. APS reads the case number. A lawyer slides the right folder. A photo nobody could ignore. A cop who knows rules from mercy. And a porch light that stays on. 2 days after the wedding, I found Bobby in the backyard on a plastic chair with 2 teenagers and a stubborn push mower between them. He held a small spring up to the light and showed them where talk lives. They nodded and grinned when the engine caught and sputtered happy. "Bring it back if it acts up," he said. "I'll be here." He would. Some people pray with words. He prays with work. He sanded that rail 100 unnecessary times when the world tried to convince him he didn't belong. Now he teaches a kid to hold a socket wrench the right way and calls it an afternoon. He waters hydrangeas. He forgets just enough so the remembering doesn't kill him. Bobby stood at the edge of the porch as the day folded itself away. He took the ultrasound from his wallet and smoothed it once with his thumb. He didn't kiss it. He didn't speak. He slid it back where he keeps the good receipts. The city keeps moving. Bills still come. He flips the switch off, then on again, testing the reliability of a world that had failed him and then, slowly, stopped. "Jessica," he calls across, "come get this cake before I eat the whole thing." I bring 2 plates because he never thinks to bring plates. He cuts the pieces too big. He hands me a fork and smiles like something inside him has finally found a flat, steady surface to rest on. "You know," he says, "I used to measure a day by whether that light came on before dark. If it didn't, I'd get up and flick it on and think, well, that's one thing, right?" "Today you get more than one," I say. He nods. He doesn't look back to check on the house. He can feel it behind him, the way you feel a hand on your shoulder that doesn't need to press to be heard. 8 days turned into a stamp, not a miracle, a sequence, stamp, hearing, settlement, light. The light stays on. Bobby waters his hydrangeas as the sun sets over Maple Street. The blue blooms nod in the evening breeze like they're saying, "Welcome home." Margaret brings him iced tea and a story about her grandson's first steps. They sit on the porch swing Bobby built in 1987, watching the neighbourhood settle into dusk. The porch light glows steady above them, no flicker, no doubt. Just light, holding back the darkness, announcing to the world, someone lives here who matters. If you believe a home is built by choices, not chromosomes, subscribe to Whispers of Revenge. In the comments, choose your word, blood or light. What defines family to you? And if you'd fight an illegal lockout like this one, type justice in the comments. Because sometimes good people need good neighbours to stand up and say, not today. Share this story if you know someone whose kindness was repaid with cruelty. Sometimes the universe needs witnesses to work its magic. The light stays on, justice finds its way home, and love, real love, doesn't need DNA to prove it's real.